I got pregnant when I was 18, and, well, I have no family, I had no job, and I have no means to keep up with the baby and give it the life that it needs. Well, I didn't want to get rid of my baby, so I had the birth, and I decided to give my baby up for adoption, which was the hardest decision of my life. Well, that decision is coming back to haunt me more than a decade later, when I went ahead and got married and found the love of my life, I thought, and I was going to break something to him. I was going to tell him about the baby that I've had before. When I get a note in the mail, and this note is blackmailing me, telling me, I know all your dirty secrets about the baby you let go, and I'm going to tell your husband. Well, guys, get ready for this one. No matter how much you run from the past, in the end it always gets you. And now my past has started haunting me. I don't know how things started spiraling and got out of control in no time. The last few months have been a blur with one thing after another, and I need your help in taking the most difficult decision of my life. I'll start my story from the beginning. Let me first take you back to the early years of my life. When I was full of hopes and dreams, I never had a decent childhood. My parents hated each other, and I always wondered why they get married in the first place. They had no stable income, always on and off to new jobs, and we ate when we had food. There were no healthy diets or the luxury of all meals. Soon, my father left us and vanished into thin air. We did not know where he went. If I had to guess, I would say he got into the wrong group and lost his life. But my mom always believed he ran away with someone much younger. I don't agree with her, and mysteriously going missing was very common in the neighborhood that we live in. I've gotten sufficient education to go by in life. I tried to be an optimistic person who was eager to explore the world and discover my purpose, but does fate always work like you want it to? No. And just like that, one day, I found myself in a doomed relationship. That was the darkest period of my life. I fell in love when I was just 18 with a guy who was much older than me. I knew we had no future, but we were young. Logic doesn't matter when you're young. He treated me well and was divorced, and I felt secure with him because of the childhood that I had. He helped me financially and also gave me a solid roof over my head. That's not all because he also, got me pregnant. The day I found out, I panicked and could not understand the situation fully. I was screwed. The worst had happened. I was very young and unprepared and unseen of the future that awaited me and my unborn child. Plus, I don't plan to settle with him anyways. So, I initially decided to keep my mouth shut until I'm sure how I feel about this whole scene. I got frightened thinking about my future. How would this impact my life? How would I provide for a child when I could barely take care of myself? And in desperation and utter stupidity, I ran away from his home. I took shelter with one of the charitable nursing homes, and my first instinct was, to get rid of the baby, but I could not go ahead with it after my first checkup. But there was no way in my life that I could keep the child. Especially after my life, I've questioned my irresponsible parents for even having me. I did not want that. I had no means of survival for my baby, so I chose to give up my precious baby for adoption, believing it was the best decision I could take for him. The pain of separation tore at my soul, but I convinced myself that this was the child's benefit, a chance at a better life. As time went by, the separation hurt began to settle in. The pain became a part of my life, but I knew what I did was for the best. I started working at a nearby hospital and taking care of patients, and gave me a sense of purpose, which I had been longing for my entire life. After a few years, I enrolled myself in nursing school and finally felt like my life was going on a trek. As time passed, I became a nurse and was earning well for survival. Mike must have been 7 by then. I thought of contacting the agency, but I feared it would be morally okay. If he was with a normal, loving family, I did not want to disturb him. I eventually met James. He was a doctor who had joined our hospital, and the love of my life. He was kind, understanding, and had a heart full of love. We started spending a lot of time together because of our love, and, well, our field together made us fall in love. James was almost like me, had a disturbed childhood, but his uncle had helped him with his education. He made my life easier by just being in it. The loss of Mike and the doubts about my decision started to get easy, and I thought so many times about coming clean with him, but I did not want him to think I'm a monster who can let go of my own child. Now, when I think back, I feel like our marriage would have survived if I had the courage to tell him. We got married within the next 2 years and built a life together, creating a beautiful bond, but the secrets from the past always weigh heavily on me. When I was 30 years old, we had a decent money saved up, a small house that we both loved, and we started trying to have a baby of our own. Jack wanted to become a parent much more than I did, and I wanted to do this for him. I unconsciously believed having a baby may tone down my guilt a bit, but soon something very unpredictable happened. We found out that Jack cannot have a baby and we need to find alternatives if we want a kid. This was the first fall in our marriage. Jack could not digest the truth and suffering, so he stopped taking care of himself and did not like working. We fought a lot. It was like Jake gave up his hope for life. It was truly a testing time for us, and Suzanne helped us out a lot. Suzanne is our common friend from the hospital. She's a doctor too, and we love her. Well, we shared our issues with her, and she was there for us, and it felt nice when we had a third person to talk to, because at the point the silence in our marriage was echoing. Just when I thought that there's a silver chance me and Jack will come out of this situation, the absolute worst happened. A letter arrived sent by an anonymous sender. Inside were photographs and undeniable proof of Mike, now a young adult. The letter was seeking answers. It was full of threats and demands, blackmailing me into fulfilling it. My heart skipped a beat when I realized Jack was in the house and I displayed the pictures for the showcase on our dining table. My mind began to race. How did they find out? Who was doing this? When I was a teenager and wanted some advice, I would go online and talk to communities in the hope that I turned to them again. I have no idea how to deal with this. I explained the situation in great detail, wanting their guidance on how to find the blackmailer, and I desperately wanted to protect my marriage to James. Of course, I hide my identity and use throwaway accounts. As soon as I hit the submit button, anxiety took over my senses. I realized that the coming days are going to be crucial, that the decisions I make today will be determining not only my future, but also Jack's. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of a difficult journey filled with a lot of miserable days ahead, and a life-changing situation. Days turned into weeks as the responses started coming in. People were sharing their own stories of hardship, but the solutions were all mixed of different perspectives. But for me, the community proved to be a source of comfort and guidance, as I did not have those in my life. It felt like people understood me. I got another letter the next week from the blackmailer. I felt like I was being pulled into two different directions, torn between protecting my family and giving in to the blackmailer's threats. I wanted to find out who knew about my past, but more than I feared, it was time to meet my son. Update number 1. I've made some bad decisions in my life, but the most crucial of them would be the ones I'm about to take today. When I left my boy 14 years ago, I knew I was going to regret the decision the rest of my life, but I had to do that in order to keep his future secure, and the past came to haunt me a month back. When I received a blackmail letter, I knew I had to meet Mike to find out who knew about my past, but the decision was difficult. I had no answers for him, but I gathered up the courage to locate Mike. It was so hard to keep this secret from Jack now. I was tiptoeing around him for weeks, and he knew something was up. So, after days of searching, I finally managed to track down Mike. Now a teenager, he was with the foster family and my heart sank. Did anyone adopt him? Did I make his life worse than mine? Tears started flowing like a storm, and I realized the magnitude of my actions and was scared to face him. But it was more of a reason now to meet him. So I went ahead and arranged the meeting. As I laid eyes on him for the first time, a rush of emotions washed over me. Love, regret, and a deep desire to make things right. I love him. How did I manage to keep away from him for so long? He was quiet and awkward. Silence came amongst us, as it was proof of our damaged relationship. He told me that he was indeed adopted by a lovely couple, but they tragically died in a car accident when he was 8. So for the past 5 years, he's been moving around in foster cares. I could see the pain in his eyes and wanted to just hug him tight and say how sorry I was to make his life this difficult. He seemed to have no feelings at all. No remorse. No love. Nothing. However, the surprises were far from over. He was very direct to let me know that it was our common friend Dainese, who knew about him and my secret all along. My eyes were about to drop to the floor by his revelation. I did not know how to react. She was our friend? My friend. And most importantly, the one we relied on in our hour of need. Why would she go snooping around in my past? I asked him when Dainese met him, and it had been more than a year now that Dainese was coming on frequent visits. I could not believe the words coming out of his mouth. Why was she meeting him, and how did she even find out? I left with 100 questions in my head and a promise from him to not tell anybody that we've met. Well, when I reached home, I opened both the letters from my blackmailer. Now that I know it's Dainese, the meaning of the letters have changed. It was more personal now than ever before. She was doing this for something in return, and my instinct told me it would not be anything good. So I decided to give a reply to the letter, hoping that Mike would not have revealed to her right away that I knew the reality. I needed some answers from her before I could go to Jack with my secrets. As soon as I replied to the letter, asking about the identity and motive behind these threats, I called Dainese asking to meet. She came to my house in the evening and we chatted over coffee. I trembled at the nonchalant behavior Dainese had. No regrets at all. I tried my best to search my eyes for answers, and I could not help but wonder what she was doing this for. She had been meeting him for the past year. Then why was this drastic step of blackmail now? I needed to figure out her motive to know the extent of her knowledge. Meanwhile, the question of whether I should tell Jack, it remained in the air. It's funny how I had survived so many years without my boy, but in the last year I realized it was going to be super difficult to not see him every day. I went back to meet him again, and maybe this time apologize more and just explain to him why I did what I did in the past. When I got there, I saw Dainese's car outside the house. I was shocked and scared because I absolutely did not want her to see me. So I parked my car exactly 1 block away and just waited patiently for her to leave. I was hiding behind a bench when I saw Dainese walking towards her car. She was on the phone with me one day, and it looked like a very serious conversation. In the next 5 minutes, I went inside the home. I was desperate to know if Max had spilled the beans on Dainese or not, and Mike appeared sadder than the last time. He hugged me as soon as he saw me, and I froze there. I wanted to stop time and just be in this moment forever. We both started bawling. I'm so sorry. I kept repeating the words like a Buddhist chant, and Mike was awfully quiet, and after a good 10 minutes I asked him what was wrong or if Dainese had said anything, and he just kept nodding no. What Mike said next cleared up a lot of questions in my mind. He did not hate me. He was just angry at me for abandoning him, and I more than understood where he was going. Mike wished to come home with me, and I knew I would go to war with my life to get him home now. The only thing that was stopping me from getting Mike home was the hope that he was extremely happy with a family that loved him. But knowing that he was treated like an orphan, I did not even give a second thought. I immediately called the agency and asked them to start the paperwork now. I wanted to know why Denise was here, but it did not seem like a good time to ask. Update number 2. The child reveals Denise came by one day with proof that Amelia, her mother, was. It was time to come clean to Jack. The last meeting I had with Mike was overwhelming, to be saying the least, and he asked me to take him home. I had made the mistake once because of undeniable circumstances, but today I was financially capable of raising Mike the right way, by being the best mother, a mother I never had. For that to happen, I have to tell Jack the truth from the beginning. I hoped that Jack could see his child in Mike, and I've just been sneaking from work almost every day to meet Mike. Today, as I sat down with Mike, it felt like the air was changing. We had both come a long way, drawn together by shared secrets and unanswered questions. I narrated the whole story of Mike's biological father. How I got pregnant, how I ran away and gave him up for adoption because that's the best I could do for him, and to my disbelief, Mike told me he knew who his father was. I could sense that the whole story filled Mike with anger and hurt. According to Mike, Denise had come to him one day with proof about his parents, and that we were alive and had abandoned him. Consumed with anger, he agreed to help Denise, providing her with his life information and photographs to use for blackmailing me. Mike had no idea why Denise was helping him, but he simply thought this could be a chance for him to meet us, and agreed. After that, Denise constantly visited him to know more about me, especially to know if I was in touch with him. Denise, one of my closest friends, had played a cruel role and even manipulated my child into being a pawn in her sick game. The betrayal cut deep, leaving me questioning everything I thought I knew about our friendship. Not waiting any longer, I planned to tell her everything to Jack tonight. I did not want to keep Mike away longer, and he was just a few days away before legally becoming my child. I bid goodbye to Mike and went home to prepare myself for the most difficult communication of my life. My house was filled with a sense of frustration, and after hospital hours, Jack usually returns around 8 p.m. However, because of an emergency situation, it may take a bit longer, though he always calls and informs me if he believes he's going to be late. Today, above all days, I wanted him home ASAP. But it was already 10 p.m., and he had not returned yet. I called him after waiting for 2 hours, but he didn't answer. When I was alone in the house, I had an epiphany. For so long, Jack and I have not spent a single evening together. I was so preoccupied with Mike and Denise that I completely overlooked Jack. I fell asleep on the couch waiting for him. The next morning, I did not waste any breath and went straight to Jack to confess. But I realized he was not home. He has been out all night. I tried to call the hospital and some of our friends, but no one knew. The hospital staff told me he left at his usual time, and I felt my stomach in knots because I very soon realized he was up to something. Jack had never done something like this, and for the past few months, as I recalled every single day, I knew this was not going well. We were not talking to each other, and weirdly enough, he never asked for the reason for me being aloof. I rushed to our room to find something, anything that could give me a clue as to what was going on. I desperately began going through all of his drawers and cupboards, and I found nothing. I had to go to work, so I left, making sure there was no proof. I was on leave for a long time because of all the mess happening around my home, and the field I work in cannot bear a mistake, so I took off to deal with my issues first. To be honest, it felt really refreshing to be back at work, but people were looking all funny at me as they could see right through my heart and sense everything has been going on. I kept myself busy. Around 3 p.m. to noon, I saw Jack coming into the hospital. I went running to him to ensure he was okay, and he seemed fine and had no expression of guilt or shock to see me. I left him a note to meet me at home tonight, as there's something very important I need to talk about. Well, when I reached home, to my shock, the door was open and Denise was already waiting. "Do you have the keys to my house?" I asked in frustration, and she just smiled and said that she would wait for Jack. After half an hour, Jack came home, and I had no idea this evening would turn my life upside down. All the chaos, doubts, and emotions came down to this one event. Instead of me telling Jack I have something to tell him, the reverse happened. He told me he has something to tell me, and my heart sank. Oh my goodness, how did I not see this? Jack and Dainese? Oh my God! I exclaimed, nodding my head in a denying motion. I looked straight into his eyes and asked, "Do you know about Mike and what role Dainese played in this heinous story?" Jack asked me to sit down and offered me a glass of water like this was some drama TV show and I needed a drink. I was so angry with him. Dainese, but most angry with myself. How did this all happen and why? How could you have kept such a significant secret from me, I asked him. It came to light that they've been involved for quite a few years and never had the courage to tell me. Jack explained to himself that he did not know Dainese had cooked the plan to blackmail me using Mike. He came to know about Mike just a week ago. So now Dainese and James, both aware of my child's existence, exploited that knowledge to their advantage. I don't understand. I was so angry and vengeful that I wanted to slap Dainese across the face, and I yelled, "Why? Why did you involve my child? What could possibly get you out of blackmailing me for this?" Dainese looked at Jack and then at me and started crying too. Jack, leaving me behind, immediately went to her rescue like I was some kind of used clothing. I was shattered. It felt like there was no reason for me to look at all at this and just suffer anymore. I ran away with my car keys and started driving without a destination. I saw Jack coming behind me asking to stop, but I had to digest too much information already. There was no space for more. I was driving around the city aimlessly, and for the first time it felt like I could not do this anymore. I felt lonely, extremely lonely. During this time when I needed someone, I realized I had no one I could rely on. Sometimes life becomes so difficult that it completely swallows you. I did not see any brightness and wanted to end my misery. I went to the pharmacy and picked up some sleeping pills. When I got to my car, I took out far too many and held them in my palm. I was nervous. I wanted to end it, but somehow my hand could not reach my mouth. I closed my eyes and recalled my life journey. I was a warrior. I survived the most abusive parent environment. I did not get rid of my baby. I gave him a chance at life and brought that baby into the world. I made the hardest decision of adoption just to improve his life. I educated myself, and today I can live my own life on my own terms. And the most important I have is Mike, who needs a mother. I absolutely cannot abandon him again, so I dropped those pills and went back home to face the situation. I knew I've survived enough that it could not break me. When I reached home, it had been more than an hour, but both Dainese and Jack were still waiting for me in the drawing room. I directly asked Dainese to explain herself. Why did she involve Mike? As if she was not hurt enough, she told me the most heinous reason for her snooping of my past. Dainese and Jack had an affair for the past 2 years, but Jack did not want to leave me and felt it was unfair. Out of frustration, Dainese wanted to give Jack some sort of reason to leave her not-so-perfect wife. So she asked a private investigator to dig up my past and found that I had a child when I was 18. Dainese knew this was her chance to break apart our marriage and tried to find Mike. When she did, she gathered all the proof from Mike and blackmailed me, hoping I would run away from Mike's responsibility just like I did in the past. After a few letters, Dainese found out that I was planning to adopt Mike and come clean to Jack. Her plan backfired. And that's when she told Jack everything that she had done. Jack was hurt and felt betrayed by me that I never mentioned my child for the past decade. So he chose Dainese's side and finally decided to reveal their relationship. After hearing everything both of them had to say, it became clear our paths have separated and that trust had been shattered. With a newfound purpose in my life, I decided to fight back. I cannot let James and Dainese take away my dignity and happiness without a fight. So I met a lawyer and filed for a divorce. I did not want anything from Jack but for my respect. I wanted to leave him and start a new life. Karma had a way of serving its own taste of justice, though. In a surprising turn of events, the divorce proceedings favored me, because everything from my past was presented. My life, the situation at the time of my pregnancy, and even that I applied to legally adopt Mike, which left James with nothing. The tables have turned, and everybody, including Jack, realized that cheating and degrading our marriage cannot be reasoned with. I won the divorce court. Jack had to split his material possessions with me. His wife. I got the house, as I had to survive with my child somehow. Mike moved to the house and we started living as a small but grateful family. Jack had suffered enough humiliation as we both worked in the same hospital. He could not face anybody. So, he and Denise left town. And I, on the other hand, found the true purpose of my life. My child. I will prove to be the best mother. A mother I never had and will never ever again hurt my Mike. Whatever happens in your life is always because of some good reason. And believe me, karma serves everybody. So the comment section of this one, at first, well, they were not very happy with Amelia, it seemed. But with more updates that came out on this story, everyone was taking Amelia's side, and I was one of them. I mean, this girl was a warrior. She just kept fighting and refused to give up. I think the worst part about this entire story, though, was Denise. Denise was supposed to be her friend, but she's the one who ended up backstabbing her more than her own husband. I mean, she went behind her back, had an affair with her husband, and even hired a private investigator to try to expose her secret to Jack. Guys, all I can say, though, is I'm happy it worked out for OP and Mike. Not only did it work out for OP, but it seemed like Jack and Denise get a bit of karma. Because, well, they lose the divorce settlement, and Jack loses his house to OP. And OP and Mike get to live happily ever after in a free home. Guys, that's what I call karma. So, let me know your thoughts about this story. It was definitely an emotional roller coaster, and OP was a warrior. It was pretty obvious because the comment section was calling her a warrior left and right, but let me know your thoughts about it. Drop your comments down below. Let's discuss this. Thank you so much for joining me on today's story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're new to the channel, hello, my name's Mr. Reddito. I post every single day. So stop by tomorrow, see what we're up to, and remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya!